Okay, so welcome to today's meeting of the ESPO Finance and Audit Subcommittee. This meeting is being broadcast live on YouTube and it will also be available for viewing after the meeting. We've received apologies from Dr. Feltham and Councillor Goodliff. First, we need to elect a chairman for this meeting. I'd recommend appointing Councillor Clancy in line with the chairmanship rota. Can I get a nomination and seconder, please? I see Councillor Coles.
I will second.
Well, if there's no opposition, I'd say that's Councillor Clancy can take the chair. Yeah, everyone's got their hands up. Yeah, perfect. Over to you, Councillor Clancy.
Okay. Good morning. First, a little brief introduction. As I say, I'm not very good on Teams, so I apologise if I'm a bit clunky, and I'll need a bit of guidance from time to time. So please bear with me on that. I much prefer face-to-face meetings, but we are where we are. So if we could go straight onto the agenda, please. Just bear a second. Yep, we're in. If we could look at the minutes of the meeting held February the 2nd, please, and to confirm those minutes, please. Does anybody want to go through them page by page, or is everybody in agreement? Thank you. Right, to advise if the chairman has decided there's any other items of urgent business. I'm not aware of any items of urgent business unless anybody from the executive is got anything, please. Are you aware of anything?
I don't think so, Chair.
Thank you. Item number 3, declarations of any interest. Does any member have any declarations of interest, please? No, thank you. Right, item number 4, the main sort of business of the first part of the meeting in any case, the internal audit annual report. Could I hand over to Neil, please?
Thanks, Chair. This is the one we just discussed. We could perhaps.
Oh, sorry. You want to go?
Agenda item 5, please. For
Matt's report first. Sorry. Yeah. Apologies.
That's great. Thank you.
Matt's report, please. Agenda item 5.
Thank you. Yes, as Neil suggests, the logic is one feeds the other, so it's probably better that I go first. It's routine progress against plan report, but thank you for the opportunity to be able to progress the reports to you. As paragraph 4 on page 29 states, it effectively closes down our 21-22 internal audit plan. So it was approved in March 21 by the management committee, and then it introduces obviously the 22-23 internal audit plan that was approved last month, 16th of March, by the management committee. In paragraph 5 of the report, we talk about our audit opinions, and I think that's timely because we'll soon be moving on to paragraph 7 and 8, where we talk about partial opinion ratings in our audits that we need to bring to the attention of this committee. And the partial opinion rating that we talk about for 21-22, there's only one, and it's our coverage in relation to cyber security. You'll note that in paragraph 7, there are 3 high importance recommendations detailed. To be honest, purely for the reasons of IT security, I was not intending to dwell on the exact details of these in a public meeting, but I thought it was suffice to say that from the work we did, ESPO created an IT log of all the risks for each area of the report. And they've created actions to be taken or that have been taken, and they're constantly being recorded and updated. And we're reviewing these on an ongoing basis. But it is fair to say that some of the recommendations will take a period of time to implement. As for an example, selecting a cybersecurity partner, to get that right, obviously it takes time to do it. But I think most crucially for this committee, We're confident that prompt action in terms of key areas such as the ongoing internal and external scans to highlight and address vulnerabilities, things like that are being addressed very quickly, very promptly, and taken very seriously. We'll continue to track progress against all cybersecurity recommendations in the report. Indeed, we've put something in the 22-23 plan to do this. And I think it's right that we bring current progress back to the management committee in September's meeting, or to ensure that it's included as part of the director's progress report for that meeting, whichever works out better. Moving on then from cybersecurity, because obviously there's opportunity for question at the end. Paragraph 8 explains that we do have one legacy recommendation with partial assurance in respect of credit control. But it explains that whilst most of the areas have been completed, we've tested most of the areas and we're satisfied they've been completed. For reasons for efficiency, really, the remaining ones we're looking at as part of our general financials audit coverage. And it says we'll complete that by the end of June. I'm pleased to say that literally last night that a draft report came into my inbox for me to review. So I'll be looking at that as soon as possible, and obviously I'll be reporting back whether the controls have been deployed to significantly reduce any risk to an acceptable level. So that's against the high importance recommendations, and update on those. Paragraph 9 then details in-year changes to the plan, because obviously the plan will change on day one if new areas come in and areas to move down as less important as part of a risk assessment process. And then paragraph 10 summarises where we are on closing down the 21-22 jobs, and there's full detail of that in Appendix 1 on page 35 of the pack, which goes into all the detail. However, to summarise 21-22, we've completed 16 jobs. We've got 3 that remain work in progress, and 3 were either cancelled or deferred. Now, if it's okay, I prefer to do to summarise 22-23 as well before taking questions, because obviously it gives the full picture. So our 22-23 progress to date, the detail is in Appendix 2 on page 41. But focusing on these jobs, I think we need to set context first of all, obviously, that we're less than 1.5 months into a 12-month plan, of which substantial amounts of the work can only be completed in quarter 4. That's purely due to the periods of testing required. But however, I'm pleased to say that, as detailed in paragraph 13, 19 jobs, 13 have progressed to varying degrees, with only 6 of them not being started at all, and some of those can't be completed until the final quarter, as we've said, because we need almost whole year sample sizes to actually conclude that work. So in concluding the whole paper, I'd say really the key points to note are we've completed almost all of the 21-22 jobs. We remain on track to complete the remaining 3 jobs in the first quarter. The results of our work were on the whole healthy, which feeds nicely into the next paper, the head of audit annual report. We've still got 2 high importance recommendations currently within the committee regime, one of which we hope to close in the next quarter in respect of credit control, and one in respect of cyber security. We'll bring an update back to the September management committee. And then finally, obviously, we've made considerable progress, considering we're only 1.5 months into the year, on the 22-23 work. So I'm more than happy to take any questions, or we could take questions after Neil's completed his annual report as well, whichever is preferable. Thank you.
We got a question from Councillor Rollins, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the presentation. Just going to move my quick at the moment. Looking at paragraph 8, we've got the 2021 legacy partial assurance audit. So is this, I presume, legacy software that will be going to be changed? Or do you mean by legacy that it was just a brought forward deferred item?
Yeah.
So 2 things are just one, the old legacy systems, how many have we got, and how long do we think we're working on those? Clearly, sometimes integrating a new package can be time consuming and take considerable resources. But in your list of credit control audits, the one at the bottom, segregation of duties, could you just perhaps give us just a brief indication of the issues there? Thank you.
Yes, I can do, but just give David a little bit notice. It might be a good idea also if he spoke about it.
It's all right. I'm happy to take that as a written comment later after the meeting.
Yeah. First of all, in respect to the word legacy, sorry if that caused confusion. I meant legacy as in historic, outstanding item. It was no, it's nothing to do with the IT. Legacy. It was the actual. Yeah, sorry, it was the actual process itself.
Legacy. We generally mean old systems that have got to be replaced.
Yeah, and in terms of segregation of duties, but obviously I'd let David expand on this. It's predominantly the usual thing that people can't sort of write off debts that have access to allocate cash, areas like that. The traditional segregation of duties. Now, whilst it was quite good in ESPO's case, the segregation, it wasn't enforced in as much as some people could gain access that they shouldn't do. So that was being looked at and reviewed. David, do you want to add to that? Sorry to put you on the spot. But
no, that's okay. So I came on camera, Matt. So legacy issues. So actually, this goes back to an audit report that was done in the latter part of 2020 and early 2021. So actually, most of those actions were resolved in sort of early spring 2021 last year, and actually, just the completion of the audit report was just delayed to allow for it to be completed with another piece of work, more for a sort of point of efficiency of the internal audit team rather than any delay in actually resolving the issues. But as a bit of background, that period of time, the team transitioned to entirely remotely and had to go paperless, in a very short period of time. And so actually the development of controls through that period just lagged behind the need to get everybody to, safely work from home. And so through at the early part of last year, we overhauled the controls and took heed of the recommendations from the internal audit report, and those have been operating effectively since early summer last year.
Thank you.
Councillor Coles, please.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chairman. I think this might be a question for David, actually, but just to ask, we've had a particular incident in terms of fraud, which is combining both cyber and also subverting controls within human beings as well. I'm just wondering whether you're aware of that particular incident and whether your audit review has picked up that particular type of attack, because it was almost successful.
Yes, really good point, and it was an issue that we got affected by last summer. Not related to credit control, actually. So it was, I'd probably say, less of a cyber issue and really just what we'd call a phishing exercise that we got affected by. And the end result was human error, as is often the case in these instances, and that triggered a formal sort of incident response, which myself and the executive team within ESPO looked at in conjunction with internal audit. We reviewed and put enhancements to our controls in place to make sure that it wouldn't happen again. And which included, formal training with external partners and internal on-the-job training for all the staff involved in the team, enhancements to the written procedures, and additional sign-off and controls in there to mitigate this happening again. In both instances, we were really fortunate, and there wasn't a financial loss to ESPO. But that's not a reason to rest on our laurels, and it's something we're really mindful of internally, both with the training and refreshers, and reiterating the importance and risk that we're under, both as a business and across the wider public sector. I'm sure you'll be familiar with the risk coming across your own areas as well.
Thank you. I think for me the concern is that the supplier was affected by cyber, and then we were affected by the human element, and it's just trying to differentiate between the two is quite difficult, and it's very hard to provide assurance around the cybersecurity protection of your supplier.
You are right. Yeah, that particular issue, it was the supplier that we believe and informally had confirmed had been hacked. In that case, that can happen, and that is outside of our control. But internally, our own procedures need to be robust enough to protect and defend against that. And the procedure that we've got set out should do that. Again, it was just a small instance of human error, which allowed that to fail in the first instance. And off the back of that, we reissued training, we retrained the team on the full process to try and make sure that it doesn't happen again.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Matt, please.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to add to that. We have got the risk of bank mandate fraud, and also looking at the whole supplier database for the risk of duplicate payments and the processes surrounding that on the 22-23 plan. So we have got that as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. On that basis, Matt, do you have anything else further to say on that report, please?
Sorry, on which report? The bank mandate?
On your progress report, I think, Matt.
Sure.
Oh, no. No, I don't know if there's any further questions. Sorry.
No, thank you. Anybody else? Any further questions, please? No, thank you. So if we could now really go back then, please, on to Neil's report.
Please, Chair. Thank you. So this will be happening in your own organisation. Your head of internal audit will be preparing their annual report for their audit committees around this time of year, and it's a requirement under public sector audit standards, internal audit standards, that we have to present an annual report to what is defined as the board, and for ESPO the board is Finance and Audit Sub. However, the subcommittee doesn't have any decision-making power, so it will be taking this report to management committee to formally approve it. I think that's on the 29th of June. So there are specific requirements to incorporate into the report. The most important thing is being the head of internal audit opinion on the overall adequacy and effectiveness of ESPO's control environment, and that's generally known as its frameworks and systems of governance, risk management and internal control. So the audits that Matt has been referring to will have all been defined as in one of those categories. So how do I go about reaching that opinion? So if we start with Annex 1, which is page 17, and really from page 18, I explain how I use a combination of evidence really to reach the opinion, mostly based on the findings of the audits that we've undertaken. They're all summarised in pages 23 to 27. Literally, it's just a list of stuff that we've been bringing to the committee. But then I also take examples from this meeting and other management committee meetings about the associated governance by committees, and also changes to policies and procedures. So I'm effectively forming up what's known as a macro opinion of the whole control environment. So each audit gets its internal micro opinions, when we can give them, in terms of an opinion rating. But this is about looking at the whole and looking, providing macro assurance. So what I've done is to do that in terms of ESPO on page. Oh, I've lost my page number now, but it's in the excuse me. I thought I'd made a note of that. So it's actually on page 19, at the bottom of page 19, and you'll see there that I've taken account of the one partial assurance rating that we found last year, but with all the positive work that's been done on the other audits, as Matt's just been explaining, I'm proposing to provide substantial assurance that ESPO's control environment has remained adequate and effective. With previous members of the committee would have, remember we had some debate about how we, were going to use that word substantial assurance, and we agreed that I did some more research. This was last year, so I backed up some research, and I'm comfortable with that. Whilst there are medium rated weaknesses in other audit engagements, there's only been the one cyber area, and most importantly, we need to know how management respond. What is their attitude to resolving those issues that we've identified? So we get a good throughput with Dave and Chris to get those done. So. Okay, the report itself, actual annual report, is in page 15. Pages 11 to 15. And after some background, I'll repeat the opinion, and then I provide some summary context on the information, and then just around those audits that Matt's been referring to. Paragraph 16, 17 in that report talk how the service performed, and then just to bring to the committee's attention, part of the requirements for me is I have to do a self-assessment of conformance to the standards. I haven't done that at this point in time, but will be done in time for the management committee on the 29th of June. And then finally, in the report, paragraph 20, a reminder that my opinion goes into the annual governance statement that Dave is working up at the moment, and I think that's going to committee at the end of June. We'll have a meeting of what we call as our governance group to see that that properly reflects ESPO's governance over the previous year. So I guess really the cover report covers this off paragraphs 8 and 9, but overall another positive overall opinion. The majority of the planned work was achieved, and we slightly underprovided in days that was planned, but there was certainly sufficient to be able to provide an opinion. So that's my report. Again, I'll gladly take any questions if you've got them.
Yep. Councillor Rawlins, please.
Thank you, Stuart. Thank you for the presentation, Neil. Just a very quick one. I think the report says 140 days you've got of availability. Is that sufficient? Do you think? I mean, obviously, would you like a few more days, but is that? Are you happy with that?
We planned on 150 last year. So we had a bit of a resource blip for a while, but yeah, that's certainly sufficient, I think, in terms of the numbers of days provided.
Thank you.
Councillor Coles, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just interested in reference 22D, the deferred look at the export on ESPO International. Appreciate it's incredibly difficult when we've gone through COVID, but I'm guessing it's got to be reviewed quite carefully because we're not quite sure where we're going. But do you think that's going to take a significant amount of time to be able to bottom that out, bearing in mind it's at quite a low level at the moment?
I'm sorry, Chair. Where were you looking? Which page number, please?
Page 27, deferred cancelled jobs.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it might be better to call on Matt here. Who's kept a handle on these? So the 3 deferred cancelled jobs, yeah. So you got it was the one specifically around export and ESPO International.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, as you quite rightly said, and I can see David Gooday wants to say something as well, so we'll let him come in, obviously. There is very little in terms of materiality overall in there, but it is important for us to look at. And we also want to get right our approach on whether we are best to actually look at someone to come in and do that piece of work for us as a contractor, or actually do it ourselves, depending on when we've sorted out the scope and nature of the work. But because it was low in terms of volumes compared to we were expecting to, at the minute we decided to wait and put it to the back burner, for want of a better word, and deal with more competing demands, particularly in respect of cybersecurity, because of the risks in that area. So may I hand over to David? Sorry, Chair.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Yes, okay. Please.
Sure, relatively minor. Matt's covered it really nicely, actually. But just to add, you know, we recall our international business is an area that we've been really starting from scratch, and we're hoping to build up and grow. But then COVID hit, and that significantly affected our international market. And so, given that we haven't seen the growth in that business that we'd originally previously anticipated, it made sense to just hold off on the internal audit work until that starts to pick up, and we start to really want to then, look at our risk management around that and make sure we're conforming to best practice.
Thank you very much.
That makes good sense. I think absolute good sense. Right. Any further questions? Do we have on the reports, please? Anybody else wish to make any further comment? Thank you. Right, so we then basically go on to the item number 6 on the agenda. The next subcommittee meeting will take place early 2023, date to be confirmed. As previously stated, there are no other items that have been decided to take as urgent. So we go on to item number 8, exclusion of press and public. I move that in accordance with the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the meeting for the remaining items of business on the grounds that they involve the likely disclosure of exempt information. Could we have your confirmation?